Hi everyone, Dr. Oliver here, and today I just kind of want to go over some hints and some tips for conducting group presentations online. So as you can see here, I'm recording my entire screen and I have the Zoom window pulled up so I can show you some of these integrative elements. So today I'm really talking about two different things. One, I'm going to teach you some technical activities that you can do in group online presentations. These really just help your audience or whoever you're presenting to, your class or what have you, interact with you a bit more. So it's not just you talking through a screen and giving lecture. You can be integrative and have these interactive elements. And then the second part is really just a list of tips and kind of technical reminders to keep in mind when you're creating and when you're running a group presentation online. So first, let's go through some of the technical activities that you can lead during a group presentation online that again helps with your interaction with your audience. One is a really simple feature that you can do via Zoom, and I call these waterfalls or group conversation waterfalls. Now, you'll know if you've used Zoom before that you have a chat feature, right? So if you pull up the chat feature, you know that you can talk to everyone if you look in this bottom right hand part of my screen. Now, a waterfall is where you give your audience a particular prompt. For example, I might ask my students, what's one way you can manage conflict constructively? And then I'd give them a prompt like, think about this for the next 20 seconds and type something out. And then when I say go, we're all going to click enter at the same time. So you need to make sure that that instruction is clear, so that you're not clicking enter until you tell them to. So for example, everyone is, again, during this 20 seconds, 30 seconds, saying answers to the prompt that you gave them. So how to handle conflict constructively? Well, I statements, right? So I type that out. And then when I click enter, when someone gives me the go ahead and says, everyone click enter, you're going to have a waterfall of answers populate at the same time on the right hand side of your screen. So that's one great way, not just to brainstorm like we just did, but also as an accuracy check. So you might, poll your audience. What are one of the practices that we taught you today during this group presentation? And then again, ask them to all engage in the chat feature and not click enter until you tell them to. So you can see that waterfall of answers all happen at one time. Another thing you can do is engage in breakout rooms. Now, as a participant or as a student, you've probably been put into breakout rooms, but something you need to keep in mind is that only a host or a co-host has the ability to put people into breakout rooms. So you would need to communicate with your teacher or whoever the host is and let them know how many people you want in how many breakout rooms and how long they would be in a breakout room. So how many minutes you want them to be in that breakout room. You would also need to tell them if you want specific students or participants in particular breakout rooms, or if you just want them randomly assigned to rooms. Now, again, if you have the hosting option, so if you are the host or a co-host, you will have this option at the bottom of your screen that you can see here. You click on breakout rooms, you say how many breakout rooms you want, whether you want to manually assign people or if you just want to randomize it using the automatically button. And then once you click breakout rooms, and if there were multiple people in this Zoom, you would assign different people under here. You can move people around. One thing to keep in mind during breakout rooms is that you cannot use the chat feature while they are in breakout rooms. So if you send something via this chat feature over here on the right, while people are in breakout rooms, they do not receive the message. So instead, if you are the host or if you are, again, talking with your teacher and asking them to do this as a host, you have the option right here to send them a particular, once the room is open, you have the opportunity to send a message to all breakout rooms. So common messages I send out are 5 minutes left. Be sure to wrap up. The rooms are ending in 1 minute. So you can send out that messaging, again, not through the typical chat feature, but through the breakout rooms icon that either the host or you're talking to the host like your teacher can help you do that as well. So breakout rooms are a great opportunity to spark engagement amongst your audience or whoever you're presenting to. But again, let the host know or your teacher know how many rooms you want, how many people in each room, and how long you want those rooms to last for. Now, while they're in breakout rooms, it's great to use Google Docs or Google Slides to help people brainstorm or engage in an activity. So I do this quite frequently with my students. And how to get to Google Drive is once you sign into your email, this icon right here, click the word Drive and your Drive will pull up. So as you can see, I've done a lot of Google Docs in my time. This might be blank for you, so you just right click and you'd click Google Doc, Google Sheet, Google Slide, or Google Form, whichever one you're interested in. And here's an example of a Google Doc that I've used for brainstorming within some of my classes. So I put which group it is up top. I let them know the name of the activity. I even included a blank section that said names that, again, once these groups got into breakout rooms or once they got into the Google Doc, they could put their names in. I left them questions and asked them to write their answers in red so I could see what they contributed. So this is a great opportunity while they're in breakout rooms to get them to work within the same document. And Google Docs are free, and as long as you click the share button and make it where you have it as anyone either on the internet, so anyone with the link, or anyone just at your organization can edit, so change this to editor, they will all be able to engage in this doc together. Now, you need to send out that link to your participants to make sure they can engage. So before you go to breakout rooms, you would need to copy and paste the link right here and make sure you send it to everyone. So again, the chat feature does not work when you're in breakout rooms, so that would be important to do prior to starting the breakout rooms. Now, other than Google Docs, you can also use Google Slides. For example, I used a Google slide and kind of put together a worksheet that I had my students in the Scholars Program work on. So everything in red is what they added. I created the other parts. So Google Slides work just like a PowerPoint does, so you can kind of make the presentation whatever you want, but I usually use Google Slides as an opportunity to create worksheets or to make a little bit more of a visually satisfying version of Google Docs where they can engage with each other and answer questions. You can upload pictures using the insert image. You can include links on Google Slides as well. So this is another element that, again, you can send the link via the chat feature before you go into breakout rooms. And they can click on that link and once they're in breakout rooms, talk about answering this worksheet or answering and contributing to this doc. Now, other than Google Slides and Google Docs, Google also offers something called Jamboard. Now, how you locate Jamboard is, again, once you sign into your email and click on this button, if you scroll down, you'll see the word Jamboard. And when you click Jamboard, it will show all the Jamboards you've already created. Or if this is blank, you click this plus sign at the bottom right to create a Jamboard. Now, this is what a Jamboard looks like. This is, again, something that I used for my Scholars class. In most aspects, it works the exact same way as a Google Slide, where it creates a slide for you. But you have a couple additional elements in Jamboard. For example, you can write using a pen. You can add in sticky notes, like we see here. And then the sticky note will post. So you can move it around. You also have the opportunity, of course, to text or add a picture as well. Now, the reason I like to use Jamboards is that I can use them as a collaborative way for a group to work together. For example, for this particular Jamboard, each group started with a question. So group 1 started on question 1. Group 2 started on question 2. and they were asked to contribute on this Jamboard, which was at the time blank. And I asked them to answer this question. What are the negative effects of gathering information from media? So social media, television, film, and radio and podcast. And so they contributed by adding, again, drawings, by uploading Post-it notes, by typing things out. And then I sent an email out, or excuse me, a message out to the breakout rooms that said, move to the next question. So that group then went to the next question and contributed to it. And every 10 minutes or so, I had them move to another question. So each group had the opportunity to add to these slides. And then at the end, I asked them to go back to their original slide. And once we got back to the main room in Zoom, I asked them to kind of summarize what all elements they had on their slide. So they had about 5 minutes as a group to present what they had on their slide. And that slide included a lot of different things that other groups and other classmates added to it. So if you're doing some kind of group presentation, this is a great way, again, to get your group mates or other classmates, other audience members to engage with one another. They can collaborate on this Jamboard by adding in pictures, adding in text, and they can go from slide to slide to slide. Now, another option you have is to create a word cloud. And there are 2 places that you can create a free word cloud from, and that's Answer Garden and Menti.com. Now, I've used Answer Garden multiple times before, and you just go to answergarden.ch. And if you click this plus sign, it will take you to a place where you can generate your word cloud. So if I was to ask, what does the word conflict mean to you? That would be my topic, the question that I'm asking that I want people to contribute words or phrases to. I can say how long they can make their answer, 20 to 40 characters, and then I click Create. Now, when I click Create, I can then send out the link that is created to my participants, again, via that chat feature. So I would make sure that I go into the chat feature and send this link. Now, everyone has the opportunity to add and answer this question. So what does conflict mean to you? So if I said disagreement. Now, once I submit that, if multiple people submitted that word, this word would get bigger and bigger and bigger. All the other different words that were also submitted by other classmates or by other audience members would function and show up here as well. But how word clouds work is that those words that were repeated by the most people will be the largest on the screen. So you can create a word cloud, a collaborative word cloud, using either Answer Garden or using Menti.com, so Mentimeter.com, and that can help you, again, create a word cloud that would look much like this one you see in the middle of your screen. So if you think that that would be something engaging and interesting for your audience or for those that you're leading the presentation for, that's something that, again, can help you interact with your participants or with your audience. You also have the opportunity of engaging in what's called a Padlet board. And Padlet boards are also free, so Padlet.com. You can create your own board. You can create many different types of Padlets. But here's an example of a Padlet board that I did, again, with my scholars class. So on Padlet, this would be a blank screen. So it would just have this wallpaper you see behind it. And again, once you send this link out via the Zoom chat feature, everyone can click on it and they can contribute to this Padlet board. So they contribute by clicking this plus sign in the bottom right, and they have the opportunity to title something. They have the opportunity of uploading a GIF, so something funny that goes here. For example, a GIF of someone running. They can do GIFs, images, videos, and then they can post this. So you can type something out, add something, and then once you click off to the right of it, it will post for you. So in this Padlet board, I asked my Scholars students to upload a YouTube video or an image of a really memorable ad that they watched growing up. And I use this to spark discussion of how media's rhetoric influences what we consume, what we buy, and what we remember. So they again did this by clicking the plus sign, and they actually uploaded a link here. You can upload a picture from your own files. You can add a link to a URL like a YouTube video. Again, you can search for videos, audio, GIFs, or images, or you can take a picture yourself and upload it as well. So again, a Padlet board is just one opportunity to brainstorm and collaborate with a group. So it might be useful to you when you're doing group presentations. Now, of course, you can also use YouTube videos when you're sharing your screen on Zoom. Now, something to keep in mind is that you cannot share your screen through a streaming device. For example, you cannot show videos from Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu because those are protected by copyright. Now, what is free to show and allowed to show are YouTube videos. So they are great things to use and to keep in mind, and that can spark discussions, be used as scenarios, or be used to engage in some kind of collaboration with your audience or with those students that you're teaching. So one thing to keep in mind is to make sure that you skip ads. So here's an ad before you actually present your YouTube video. Okay, so have the YouTube video pulled up on your screen already, have the link available so you can also send it again via the chat feature on Zoom. And again, skip the ads before and have it ready to go. Another thing I suggest is clicking the CC button. So the CC button will allow it to engage in closed captioning, which is really important to make sure that you are being inclusive of anyone who might have some kind of hearing disability when it comes to doing an online virtual group presentation. So almost all YouTube videos have this option of clicking the CC button to put closed captions up. Of course, they're not always the most accurate, but that again can be helpful and useful to you if you use videos during a group presentation. Now, my last suggestion is that you can engage in polling. If you are the host or a co-host, you can actually engage in polling via the function in Zoom. So you can add a question and release that poll. If you are not the co-host, you can engage in polling on a lot of different sites. For example, Slido. So Slido, S-L-I-D-O, is a free app that you can use, or a website you can use before they start charging you, that can help you run polls. You also can just engage in polls by asking people to react using the reactions button on Zoom. So everyone has this reactions button, and you can see their reactions on their face. So if all the faces were up here in gallery view, you could see who put a thumbs up, who put a heart, who put these different emojis. So if you ask a question and you say, use the reactions button for a thumbs up if you agree or if this resonates with you, that is an opportunity to poll people and see who all is agreeing with or says thumbs up, yes, I've experienced that probe or that whatever question that you posted. So you have a lot of different options with polling, whether you use websites like Slido, whether you use the Zoom feature, or whether you just use the reactions icon on Zoom. Now, lastly, I just want to give you some technical reminders and tips when you are doing online group presentations. One is to keep your face and nonverbals in mind, even when you're sharing a screen or even when your other group members are presenting. So we can still see you, we can still see your face, in a small square, even if you're sharing your screen. So make sure you're engaged when other group members are presenting. Make sure that you look engaged and excited about what they're saying. So keep that in mind. If you're recording, always let the audience know that you're recording a Zoom session or a presentation beforehand. And those who aren't willing or don't want to be recorded, tell them they have the opportunity to keep their videos off so their anonymity is there. They can remain anonymous. Even if we're talking about a presentation and not a paper, it's important to have a clear introduction. And some of the things that are important when you start a presentation, any presentation, whether it's online or in person, is to start out by saying who you are, who your group members are, and why you're credible to talk about a particular topic. If you're leading a presentation on step families and you're a part of a step family, let us know that. If you've been studying step families, say that. Provide us with your credibility at the start. It's also helpful in the introduction to let the audience know that you're presenting to what materials they need. If you know that they need to write something down and they're doing a brainstorming activity that requires them to physically write something down with a pen or pencil on a piece of paper, tell them that in the introduction. If you need them to use Google Slides or Google Docs or what have you, let them know that you will be typing through the chat feature or on a Google Doc, and that they need to be they need to be able to do that. So this is really important, especially if people are joining with their phone. And in your introduction, provide an overview of the presentation as well. For example, at the start of today's presentation, I let you know that we would talk about the different types of activities that you could lead online, and then that we would end with some technical reminders and tips. It's also helpful to use transitional phrases to pass along to another group member when it's their turn to present. And you can do this by simply saying, now that I've talked to you about step families, I'm going to pass it on to Jessica, who's going to tell you how you can manage your step family relationships. Right? So I'm passing on to the next section by naming the person in the group who goes next. You can also say things like, now on our next slide, Odette will start talking about the different practices that you can do in your daily life. So mentioning their name and mentioning the slide that they're on, again, helps your group members stay on track, and it also lets your audience know where you're going as well. As I mentioned with YouTube, it's always important to have the links pulled up on your screen already so you have them easily accessible, because again, you'll be copying and pasting these links and sending them through the chat multiple times. Again, if you use a YouTube, make sure that you go ahead and skip the ads before you actually need to show the YouTube clip. It's also important, especially if you're asking your audience to give you examples from their real life or to give you examples of what they just did in a breakout room. Make sure you, as the leading group, as the people giving this presentation, also have examples. You might have some audience members that aren't willing to talk back, or they don't have much feedback to provide. So make sure you and your group can talk and give some examples if you have an audience that's really not willing to share. And lastly, make sure that the elements of your presentation you're using, so the pictures that you include on your slides, the examples that you provide throughout your presentation, make sure that they're inclusive and that they're reflective of a general diverse audience. Keep in mind the representation you have via your pictures or via the YouTube, videos that you show, via the examples that you provide. Just make sure that you're keeping in mind what your audience needs and that they're likely made up of very diverse individuals. So hopefully this helped you come up and brainstorm some ideas that you can use in a group presentation that's in a virtual format. And again, hopefully provided some tips and hints to keep you on track when you're doing a virtual presentation, and hopefully one that will benefit both you and your audience.